Welcome to the Emotional Eating Unwrapped podcast. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, an emotional eating and weight loss coach for women looking to fall in love with eating, create healthy attachments with food, and lose weight sustainably. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I'm Alana Kessler. I'm your host. Very excited to talk today about avoiding the trap of mindless eating because it is such a common topic. It is a topic that I hear so much about from my clients, from my friends. It's something that I notice in myself often, especially when I am out of my routine, like I am right now. I'm actually coming to you from London. My husband is here for work, and I decided to tag along and record this episode from here, which is nice. It's so beautiful here during this time of year, right before holiday season, right after Thanksgiving. Lots of lights, lots of joy, lots of food, actually, too. So this topic is nice. It's fun. It's good. It's a good time to talk about this because this time of year is the time of year where I think mindless eating can be more prevalent for a bunch of reasons. One, it is cold. Two, it gets dark really early. And three, there's typically a lot of social gathering and maybe even a lot of alone time. So these are all these are all lifestyle factors that might contribute to mindless eating. So let's dive right in to the topic. And people talk a lot about mindless eating on a surface level because it's easy to just say, yeah, I mindlessly eat. I just don't I eat and I don't realize. And but I think that there are deeper reasons as to why people mindlessly eat. And it's important to acknowledge them. And typically they have to do with our culture of being busy, our culture of not liking to pay attention to discomfort or really feel into our body sensations on a in a way that's regular. That's a regular practice for us. We're typically avoiding that. We don't like to look too deeply into situations in our lives that might be out of alignment emotionally or energetically. And these are some really core underlying reasons as to why we mindlessly eat. And most of the time, mindless eating is very unconscious until we bring it to the consciousness. And oftentimes, especially with my clients that I work with and myself in the past, I wouldn't acknowledge or recognize I was mindlessly eating until I already was expressing symptoms of mindless eating, which were weight gain, which were digestive issues, which were just ways that my body, mind, and just overall energy level were feeling because of the mindless eating. And I only was able to name that I was mindlessly eating in hindsight. And what I want to do with this episode and in general, just with these episodes as a whole, is to bring a certain level of awareness in the present moment so that we can shift behaviors quicker. Because when we recognize maladaptive habits and behaviors in hindsight, like, when I realized that I had gained 15 pounds, or when I realized that I was having trouble sleeping, or when I realized that my energy was off, And I looked backwards, I could be like, oh, I mindlessly eat. But that didn't do anything to help me change the behavior in the moment. What I needed to start doing was practice allowing myself to get still in the moments when I actually was mindlessly eating, make a change with my mindset, make a change with my behavior, which typically is dropping in reflection questions that I'm going to go into today, um, bringing a level of self awareness and inquiry to the behavior in the moment. And then I can change the behavior over time. Because what happens is that the awareness and the awareness combined with the action of inquiry creates a new habit, creates a new behavior and a new way of being. And so that is not how many people live their lives. Not many people live their lives in the moment, though we talk about being in the moment all the time. Not many people live their lives in the moment. And when they realize they're doing a behavior that's not in service of their higher goals and aspirations, which mine is to feel amazing in my body. I feel like that might be yours too. Mine was to lose weight. Mine was to have energy, sleep well, digest well. Not many people are practiced in being so present with their in the moment behavior that they're able to make those changes as quickly as they want. But the truth is, the healing is in the moment because the moment is where the behavior has the potential to change. So let's go into some of the ways that mindless eating can occur. And some of the ways that mindless eating can occur start at a very young age. We observe our caregivers relating to food in certain ways, right? We see our caregivers relating to food as a way to fill time, as a way to provide love, as a way to connect socially with friends, as a way to wind down after a stressful day. And we observe this. We also observe eating when we're hungry, but we observe that food isn't just functional that way. It serves other energetic and emotional needs. We might not be able to describe it that way, but ultimately that is what it's doing. And for myself, I have definitely used food in in that capacity. I've definitely used food to fill space. I've used food to feel productive. I've used food to connect with other people. I've used food to keep me motivated and as momentum for when I felt like I needed to achieve something or I needed to finish an assignment or get work done. Right. So I've definitely used food in that way. And I've also observed my caregivers using food in that way. And that's something that I'd say most people would say they do, and it's almost been normalized. And that's why mindless eating is it's not a taboo thing to talk about, but why a lot of people have a hard time accepting that mindless eating is a tenet of emotional eating. Oftentimes emotional eating is more connected. When we think about emotional eating, we think more about binging or compulsive eating or urgency. And we think about stuffing ourselves. But the truth is, mindless eating is also emotional eating, but it's more about the unconscious. It's more about the lack of awareness to what we're eating. It's when we indulge in foods without conscious thought, intention, or attention to our hunger cues or motivations. And that also is emotional eating, because at the end of the day, the reason why we're eating is because we're not in tune with our emotional experience. So let's talk about a couple triggers that can lead to mindless eating. And one is seeking comfort, seeking comfort in food is stress, especially when we are like I am right now, especially when we're in a situation that feels like a transition or feels like it's out of our routine, right? So when we're traveling, we can often mindlessly eat and use food to feel anchored and grounded, right? An example of this is being at an airport, and it doesn't matter if it's 2 in the morning, you're eating in the lounge, you're getting a snack. Okay, that's mindlessly eating. Your brain is telling you to turn to food to provide you something. Another is when we're eating with others. Instead of staying connected to our own feelings of fullness or satiety, we want to feel that connection, and we associate that connection with eating while everyone else is eating, regardless of whether or not we're already satisfied, we're already full, regardless of whether or not the food is actually providing us anything other than just something mindless to do. And that actually we can feel that connection without eating if we just turned our attention towards ways to do that, ways to feel connected without having to also eat. Another trigger is when you're feeling tired and you really should, right? The skillful thing to do would be to acknowledge being tired and accept that. But we live in a hustle culture society where tiredness is sometimes seen as weakness. And so we used food to stay awake, stay productive, keep the energy going like a battery pack. And another trigger could be mindlessly eating for boredom, filling the space, literally filling the space. And that's, again, another symptom of our values of society where we feel like moments of space where we're not producing is somehow a weakness or somehow a failure when it's really not. So it's really important to acknowledge that we don't have to we don't have to engage with food in these areas of our lives. We don't have to engage with food while we're doing homework or finishing up a presentation. We don't have to engage with food when we're watching TV. Okay? Ask yourself, why do you feel like you need to eat while you're watching TV if you're not hungry? Is there some sort of deep-rooted shame or guilt? And eating makes you feel like you're also doing something while you're sitting there watching TV. Why can't we just say to ourselves, I'm giving myself permission to relax? So, looking at that value, those deep rooted, hidden, unconscious emotions and self judgments that we have. And so, understanding and bringing attention to some of these triggers, these scenarios, these situations that lead to mindless eating is so key to stopping the behavior and creating a relationship with food and eating that is much more conscious and much more intentional. So, I mentioned earlier that you can ask yourself questions in the moment to actually shift the behavior in the moment with practice over time so that we're not consistently looking in hindsight and saying, oh, I emotionally ate then, and then trying to fix it from a Monday morning quarterback type of situation, because that's not going to work. We need to change the behavior from within the behavior. So how do we do that? These are some questions that you ask yourself. When you notice you're mindlessly eating, which is important to notice. So right now, I want you to write down and think about different scenarios that you mindlessly eat. This is a good time to reflect back and be like, what are scenarios that I mindlessly eat? And then you need to keep your attention on that when those scenarios come up. And then if you find yourself mindlessly eating, there's no shame in that because, again, this is a practice. This doesn't change overnight. But to change the behavior within the behavior, you need to drop in these questions. So when you're mindlessly eating, the first step is to forgive yourself for it. Don't judge yourself for it. Give yourself gratitude for acknowledging it. That helps so much. Giving yourself that positive reinforcement, giving yourself that positivity even within a situation that's not the most skillful is so key. It really trains our nervous system to acknowledge and to install that sense of self-worth, that we're worthy. Even if we do a behavior that's not in alignment with our higher goals, we're still worthy because we can change, right? We can change the behavior, and now we're going to change the behavior. So the way we're going to change the behavior is to ask these questions. What is my motivation for eating this food? So when you notice that you're mindlessly eating, what is my motivation for eating this? Am I looking to feel something? What is my motivation? What am I hoping this food will provide for me? Okay, so you're going to ask yourself those two questions. What is my motivation for eating this? And what am I hoping this food will provide for me? Okay. And if you can't necessarily think of the answers in the moment, you can reflect on the past experiences when you have mindlessly been eating and see take some if you can take some nuggets from those experiences and apply them to your current experience. And it's so key just to remember that mindless eating, it is an autopilot thing. It's an unconscious thing. And so it's something that in order to heal, we have to bring attention to. So and we have to bring mindfulness to. And the biggest thing that you can do is remind yourself why you're eating. When you are emotionally eating, when you are mindlessly eating, ask yourself, what is my motivation and what is this eating going to provide for me? And when you're asking yourself those questions of what is eating this food providing for me? What is my motivation for eating? What you're really saying is when you're asking yourself, what is my motivation for eating? You're asking yourself, what am I looking to feel? What is my motivation? What am I looking to feel? And when you're asking yourself, what is this food providing for me? You're asking yourself, what experience am I looking to achieve? What experience am I trying to change? So, what do I think that eating this food is going to provide for me from an experience perspective? Right? Whereas your motivation comes from something that is typically needs feelings based. So, when you start to understand that mindless eating is rooted in needs and wanting to have a certain experience, you can truly, truly find that empowering relationship with food and eating that you're looking for. You can really shift your relationship with your eating habits to support your highest goals, whether that's weight loss, whether that's energy, whether that's confidence, whether that's all of the above. It's so important to remember that this practice will 100% empower you to reconnect with your body's physical signals, but also with your nervous system and your emotional beings, needs, and desires. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me today. And don't forget to join me again next week with another new episode about emotional eating so you can fall in love with eating and start losing weight and keep off any unwanted weight with sustainable strategies and lasting change. And if you found this episode insightful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with those who may benefit from this empowering knowledge and message. And I also have a lot of free resources on my website to help you on your journey to loving food and losing weight. Just go to www.bewellbyak.com. And until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.